You wouldn't believe what Iya Basirat is cooking for everyone to eat every day.
In the city of Osobo, there lived a woman called Iya Basirat. She was a food vendor, and her small restaurant stood beside the busy old market road. Every morning, by 6 a.m., she would open her shop, light her charcoal stove, and begin cooking. The smell of her food filled the air. Sweet stew, soft amala, hot ewedu, and tender meat that melted in the mouth. Everybody loved her food. Taxi drivers, market women, students, civil servants, they all lined up in front of her shop daily. Iya Basirat, abeg, give me one wrap of fufu and meat, one man would say. Add small pepper for me, another woman would shout. Her food was always delicious. Some people even said that her stew could wake a dead man. People admired her. They said she was hardworking, humble, and always smiling. But behind that smile was a dark secret. No one really knew much about Iya Basirat's past. She had moved into the neighborhood 5 years ago with her only daughter, Basirat, a quiet teenage girl who rarely spoke to anyone. They said her husband had died mysteriously in their former town, and she had come to Osogbo to start a new life. At first, business was slow. For months, people barely bought from her. But one evening, after she traveled to a small village called Oke Osun, everything changed. When she returned, her food suddenly began to taste different, sweeter, richer, more satisfying than before. People who had once ignored her now couldn't get enough. Within a few weeks, her shop was always full. Even the market women who sold food nearby began to lose customers to her. Some grew jealous and whispered among themselves, "Na juju she dey use o. How can food suddenly become this sweet overnight?" Another one added. But Iya Basirat would just laugh and say, "It's the grace of God, my sister. Na God dey bless my hand." Every night, she locked her shop carefully before going home. Nobody ever saw where she bought her meat or fish from. She always said she had her own supplier who delivered early before dawn. But at night, when the whole neighborhood was fast asleep, Iya Basirat became a different person. The woman everyone loved during the day, cheerful, friendly, and always smiling, disappeared completely. Once the clock struck midnight, she would quietly bolt her door from inside, shut all her windows, and blow out the lamp so no one could see what she was doing. The only light that remained came from the small charcoal stove that burned softly in the corner of her room. Then she would remove her wrapper and tie a black piece of cloth around her waist. Her face changed immediately. Her smile vanished. Her eyes became sharp and cold like that of a wild cat. She would stand in the middle of her small room, her bare feet pressed firmly to the floor, and lift her wrapper high above her head. Her voice would grow deep, and she began to chant in a strange, trembling tone that no one could understand. The room would grow colder. The walls would shake as if something unseen had entered, and then her body would start to tremble. Her eyes would turn bright red, glowing like burning charcoal. Veins stood out on her neck and arms as she groaned painfully, her body twisting like someone fighting a heavy spirit. Suddenly, small white maggots began crawling out from her skin, from her arms, her legs, her back, even her neck. At first, they came out slowly, but within seconds, thousands of them poured out, wet and slippery, falling onto the floor like a stream of rice. The air would fill with a foul smell, a smell that could make an ordinary person faint. But Iya Basirat only smiled. Instantly, all the maggots would begin to move, crawling fast, wriggling, and jumping straight into the large pot boiling on her charcoal stove. After a few seconds, the pot that was filled with boiling water now contained soft, fresh red meat, looking clean and tender. The same kind of meat her customers fought to buy every morning. When she was done, Iya Basirat would take a deep breath and wipe her face with the edge of her wrapper. The red glow in her eyes would slowly fade, and she would murmur softly, "Thank you, my spirit. You have blessed my hand again." Then she would pour the meat into a big bowl and cover it carefully. No one ever saw where her meat came from because it was never from the market. She never bought goat meat. She never bought cow meat. All her meat came from her own body, from the dark power she carried within her.
Iya Basirat had 3 workers, Sade, Kule, and Mama Teni. They were loyal and hardworking. Every day, they helped her cook, serve customers, wash plates, and clean the shop. The work was tiring, but the pay was good, and customers always left smiling. At first, everything seemed normal, but after some months, they began to notice that something wasn't right about Iya Basirat and her shop. One hot afternoon, while they were arranging plates and cutting vegetables, Sade asked curiously, "Mama, you know they buy meat for market? Every day I dey follow you go buy pepper and tomatoes, but we never buy meat before." Iya Basirat stopped stirring her soup for a moment. Then she smiled. That slow, chilling smile that made Sade's heart beat fast. "Ah, my daughter, I have a supplier. He brings meat to me at midnight," she said calmly. Sade frowned. "Midnight? But who they sell meat that time, Mama?" Iya Basirat laughed softly. "You too, ask plenty questions. Just do your work and stop worrying. The important thing be say our customers they happy." But her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes looked cold and empty, like someone hiding a secret. Sade didn't say another word, but deep down she felt uneasy. Kule, the only man among the workers, also noticed something strange. Sometimes, when he came to open the shop early in the morning, he would see smoke coming out of the pots, even though no one had started cooking yet. One morning, he opened one of the pots and jumped back in shock. The meat inside was already cooked, soft, brown, and smelling delicious. But there was no fire under the stove. He rubbed his eyes, thinking maybe he was dreaming. Then he whispered to himself, "How this thing happen? Who cooked this meat?" He wanted to ask Iya Basirat, but fear held his tongue. She was not someone you question twice. Her mood could change at any time, smiling one moment, frowning the next. Then there was Mama Teni, the oldest among them. She was a widow with 3 children and had worked for many food sellers in the past. But none of them were like Iya Basirat. The next morning, she told Sade quietly, "My spirit no rest for that shop. Something no pure there. That woman gets secret too." Sade nodded. "I feel am too. But wetin we go do? The work good, customers plenty, and money they come." Mama Tenny sighed deeply. "Yes, but not all money clean, oh." They all kept quiet after that. None of them wanted to lose their job. And so every morning, they continued to cook and serve the customers with smiling faces, pretending not to notice the strange things happening around them. Even though sometimes, when they stirred the soup, they could swear they saw something moving inside, something that didn't look like meat at all. One night, after a long, busy day, Sade and the other workers had closed the shop and gone home. The streets of Oshogbo were already quiet, and the sound of night crickets filled the air. But when Sade got home, she suddenly remembered something: her phone. She had left it on the small shelf beside the counter in Iya Basira's shop. Her heart sank. That phone was everything to her. It had her savings details and her mother's number. She hesitated for a moment.
It was already past 11 p.m., but she told herself, I will just go, pick it, and come back. Iya Basirat must have gone to sleep by now. She wrapped her scarf around her head and quietly walked back towards the shop. The night was dark, and the moonlight barely touched the dusty road. When she got close, she noticed something strange. The light inside the shop was still on. Her steps slowed down. Who dey stay here by this time? She whispered to herself. As she moved closer, she began to hear strange noises, like boiling water mixed with low murmurs. It wasn't the sound of someone cooking. It sounded like someone talking to spirits. Her heart started beating fast, but curiosity pushed her forward. She tiptoed towards the back of the shop, where there was a small hole in the wooden wall, a crack she had noticed long ago. She bent down slowly and peeped through it. What she saw made her blood run cold. Iya Basirat was standing in the middle of the shop, completely naked, except for a dirty wrapper tied around her head like a crown. Her charcoal stove was burning with a blue flame, not red, not yellow, but blue, and a large pot was boiling on it. She was dancing around the pot, twisting her body in a slow, scary way. Thick white worms began crawling out of her arms, her legs, even from her neck and back. They fell on the floor and wriggled their way into the pot of stew that was boiling without smoke. Sade covered her mouth quickly to stop a scream. Her hands trembled, and knees almost gave way. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The same woman who prayed every morning before opening her shop, who smiled at customers and called them my dear, was now surrounded by worms coming out of her body. Sade's eyes widened in terror. She stepped back slowly, afraid to make a sound. Her heart pounded so hard that she felt it in her throat. She turned and ran, barefoot, down the dark street, her wrapper almost falling off as she raced home. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't stop until she reached her mother's door. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing the sound of Iya Basirat's voice, the bubbling pot, and the sight of those worms turning into meat.
Weeks passed, and business continued to grow beyond imagination. Iya Basirat's restaurant had now become the most popular food joint in the entire city of Osogbo. People came from near and far, from Ede, Ibadan, even from Ogbomoso, just to taste her famous food. Every morning before sunrise, her customers would already be waiting outside, holding plates, laughing, and shouting her name. Iya Basirat still no get rival o. If you never chop her food, you never sabi sweet food. The smell of her stew filled the whole street, pulling people like a charm. Her pots were always full and money flowed into her hands every day. Even her workers, Sade, Kunle, and Mama Teni, began to wonder how one person's business could prosper so fast. But deep down, Sade knew the truth. She had seen what others hadn't. She kept quiet and prayed daily, hoping that one day God would expose the evil behind that delicious taste. One early morning, like every other day, the restaurant was full of people. Men sat with big plates of amala and ewedu. Women laughed as they ate, and the sound of spoons hitting plates filled the air. Sade and Kunle were busy serving food, their hands moving fast as sweat ran down their faces. The smell of stew and fresh meat filled the atmosphere, thick and sweet. Everyone was happy. But then, something strange happened. From inside the kitchen, a loud scream broke the noise. Fire! Fire! Fire is burning me, oh! It was Iya Basirat's voice. Everyone froze. Some customers dropped their spoons. Others jumped up from their seats. The whole restaurant went silent for a moment before people started rushing towards the kitchen. Why the fire dey? Maybe hot oil pour for her body. Make we help her, oh. When they reached the kitchen, they stopped.
confused and terrified. There was no fire anywhere. The stove was off. The pots were still covered. But Iya Basirat was on the floor, rolling and screaming, holding her stomach with both hands. Her eyes were wide open, her face covered in sweat, and her wrapper had almost fallen off. She kept shouting, "It's burning me! It's burning me! My stomach is on fire! Ah! It's burning me, oh!" People tried to help her, but the moment they touched her, she pushed them away and screamed louder. Her voice grew deeper, almost like another person was speaking through her. She started hitting her chest and crying, "I will confess! I will confess, oh! Leave me! It's burning me!" The crowd stood still, shocked and speechless. Some people began to whisper prayers. Others ran outside, frightened. Then, suddenly, began shouting strange things, words that no one expected to hear. "I am a witch, oh! I am a witch! The meat you people are eating is not from cow. It is maggot from my body." Gasps filled the air. Some people screamed and dropped their plates. Others spat out the food still in their mouths. She rolled on the floor, crying and shouting, "That is why my food is always sweet. That is why people keep coming. The maggots obey me. They become meat every night." Her eyes rolled backwards until only the white parts showed. Her mouth began to foam and she beat her chest with her fist as she screamed. Sade stood at one corner crying and shaking. She couldn't move. Her legs felt like wood. All the images she had seen that night flashed back in her mind. The worms crawling out of her body, the stew boiling without fire. "So it's true," she whispered through her tears. "Everything I saw that night was real." Beside her, Kunle stood frozen, his hands shaking badly. He couldn't speak. His lips quivered as sweat poured down his face. The strong young man who never feared anything now looked like a frightened child. "We've been serving maggots. We've been feeding people maggots." The smell in the shop began to change. What used to be the sweet, mouth-watering aroma of stew was now replaced by the rotten stench of decay. The meat in the pot started moving, wriggling, turning back into maggots right before everyone's eyes. People screamed louder. Some ran out, leaving their slippers behind. "Jesus, blood of God! Abomination! Witch woman!" Within minutes, the entire street had gathered. Market women, traders, Okada riders, even children rushed to see what was happening. Someone shouted, "Iya Basirat don't confess, so she dey cook with maggot." Another added, "She say na from her body the maggot dey come." The news spread like wildfire. In less than 10 minutes, half of Oshogbo had heard about it. People who had eaten her food before began to cry and pray in fear. Some held their stomachs and said, "God, if I chop maggot, forgive me." The once peaceful street became a scene of confusion, shouting, crying, praying, and running. And inside the shop, Iya Basirat was still rolling on the ground, screaming with a voice that didn't sound human anymore. "They are coming for me. Ah, they are burning me. The spirits are angry." Her screams echoed through the air, mixing with the terrified voices of the crowd outside. No one dared to go near her. Even the bravest men stood far away, crossing themselves and whispering prayers. The truth was finally out. Before anyone could stop her, Iya Basirat ran out of her restaurant, screaming and tearing her clothes like a mad woman. "I am finished! I am finished!" she cried, her voice shaking the whole street. Her wrapper fell off, but she didn't care. She ran barefoot on the hot tar road, her eyes red and wide. Children ran after her, clapping and shouting, "Mad woman! Mad woman! See Iya Basirat oh!" Some people came out of their shops and watched in shock. "Shey dis no be the same woman wey dey cook sweet soup yesterday?" One man asked. Another woman hissed. God has finally exposed her. I talk am before. Nobody food fit sweet like that without charm. Iya Basirat fell inside a dirty gutter, rolling and crying like a child. They have taken my power. My secret is gone. Oh, Ogo, help me, she screamed, beating her chest. Her voice echoed through the streets as people gathered around, watching with fear and pity. Some women made the sign of the cross. Others whispered, "So, it's true. She was cooking with maggots." A group of boys picked stones and threw at her, but she didn't even feel it. She just kept shouting and laughing at the same time. That day, she lost her mind completely. Her eyes turned empty. She no longer recognized anyone. She wandered from one street to another, picking things from the ground and calling them meat. Her once beautiful shop became a place of flies and darkness. No one dared to enter again. The big pot she used to cook was left open, filled with rotten soup and dead insects. The sweet smell that once attracted people now turned to a terrible stench. Dogs came there at night to eat the leftover food, but even they sometimes barked and ran away. Sade and Kunle couldn't bear the shame. They packed their things quietly one night and left Osobo without telling anyone. People said they went to Lagos, but nobody ever saw them again. Mama Teni too went back to her village in Uyu. She said she didn't want any spirit to follow her. She left her house empty, locking the door with 3 padlocks. Nobody knew what happened to her after that. Those who had eaten Iya Basirat's food began to cry and pray. Some went to church for deliverance. Others refused to eat outside again. The street that was once lively became quiet and fearful. Even the new food sellers who came later could not stay long. Strange things started happening around that shop. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to this channel to watch more of our interesting stories. Like, share, and drop your comment below.